replaced by another aircraft carrier, and they took turns. We would move our people, our aircraft, and all this the support we have from one to the other. But when we did the job, see, I was a crewman, so I hardly ever went back to the carriers. We flew into the northern Gulf of Tonkin, where they never let the carriers go. One, it was too shallow, it was too dangerous for them up there. So I flew off of everything that had a helicopter pad on. Anything big enough to land on, that's what we would land on. So maybe once out of a week, maybe 10 days, we'd get back to a carrier for maintenance for the aircraft. So I never knew I was going to sleep. I'd launch from one small ship, go to the next one coming back, because they always moved around. So we never knew where I was going to sleep. Heck, I think I spent half of the night sleeping in the helicopter. That was okay. That was like 90 or 100 degrees out there on the water with 100% humidity. I never ever stopped sweating.
Since you're on the topic of like the climate, did that like have any like effect on you like physically? Like, did it like weigh you down? Like, how did the climate of like Vietnam affect you in any sort of way?
I like the warm weather, but the humidity is so unbearably hot. So when you're down in the water, it's really hot. I had a break that when we'd fly, and I flew like 10 hours a day, and there was no such thing as weekends off. So it's just all the time. And so 8, 10 hours a day, I'm in the air, and then it's cool. I was up high enough, you're flying through the air, and it's nice and cool. And I always got a big door open, so that was good.
All right.
Could you describe kind of your daily routine while you were over there?
We would, depending if it was a night op or a day op, because we flew at night, of course, too. We'd get up and go into a briefing room, the pilots, co-pilots, and the crewmen. We'd find out where we were going, and we'd get the helicopters all prepped and everything ready, and take off from the ship. And sometimes a little tiny ship, like a little DD, a small destroyer, or sometimes a cruiser or missile frigates, anything big enough to have a place to take off from. We'd go. In fact, they would not launch ops off the carriers unless our helicopters were in the air, because we were your only way back. So they pretty much depended on making sure we flew. We'd fly off station, trying to stay off the coast. So I got to see a lot of the coastline of North Vietnam back at that time. We'd stay there, fly a kind of a random pattern, until the planes would go over the top of us. They'd do their mission, they'd come fly back. When everybody was feet wet again, we could go back to whatever ship we could find to land on and everything. That was my daily thing. There was a whole lot of monotony, although I loved flying. There's a lot of monotonous stuff. Nothing exciting was happening, or it was too exciting. When you got close land, everybody was always shooting at you and stuff, and you never knew where you're going to be going. The weather, sometimes we'd have to fly no matter what the weather pretty much was like, and so that was always a factor. Landing on a small ship in bad weather, and a big helicopter. We flew in an H-3 Sikorsky, very big aircraft, and big twin engine, jet engine things. Fast and bulky. It was like I flew in a big, every day part of my job. I was an aviation electrician also, which was my primary NEC. So if anything that had a wire going to it, I was responsible for. So that was part of my daily routine, making sure everything was going okay, working right. I did helped do all the pre-flights on the helicopters, making sure that everything was going to stay in there. We wanted to make sure we kept flying. And but part of the good part of my everyday thing was, I was like your age, and I got to be pretty much in charge of a $2 million helicopter, and I had more guns than you could shake a stick at, which was really fun. The aircraft I flew in was a big, ugly, flying hydraulically mostly, but they were fast and big and powerful, and we had 2 M60 machine guns, one fore and aft, and everybody had their own. We had a minigun center of the aircraft, looking out the left side, and which is an electric Gatling gun, which was very, very exciting to get to shoot. So even if we were having a boring day, we were required to shoot all the guns, so we made sure everything was working right. I probably shot and wasted more ammunition than I earned in a day, every day. Man, that was kind of fun. Because you can go through 6,000 rounds of 7.62 in a minigun in a minute. And it's just gone. That's kind of fun.
How did that kind of pressure weigh on you psychologically, having to deal with everything like that from a day-to-day basis?
Um, they train you to do everything so that you're not supposed to have to hardly think about it. Everything is supposed to be just pretty much, you know what you're supposed to do. And they teach you a lot of contingencies and stuff. I had lots of spent a lot of time in the water. When you do the rescues in the water, those are the kind of times that were sort of stressful. When they finally tell you, okay, we got somebody right off the coast, and I did 2 separate rescues in Haiphong Harbor during the middle of the war. We were bombing the north heavily at that time. There wasn't anybody going to be on your side then. One of the rescues, I was close enough to land. You could see the people that were shooting at us, and I thought, well, this is not a good job to have for any long period of time. I didn't like that. And then I can just remember being so scared that I didn't have any saliva in my mouth. It was just like paper. I was just really, really scared. Then when it was all done, it was kind of exciting and fun. But until you hook up that rescue harness again on you from the helicopter and you're out of the water there, it's scary. It scared me anyway.
Well, this is kind of on a tangent, but did you encounter any sort of drug abuse in the military? Because we learned that was a pretty big problem.
It was rampant.
Yeah.
It was rampant. Drug abuse has always been rampant in the military. Were it not alcohol or the other parts of the world with military, it's always rampant. That's part of the culture that unfortunately goes right along with the military. The military causes lots of bad habits, and all militaries are always going to be like that, with the exceptions of certain places. For instance, I'd never smoked until I went to Vietnam. First time I was when in a place people are shooting at you, really trying to kill you, and afterwards, man, I'm like shaking like a leaf. One of my very good friends said, "Here, try this. This will calm me down." Gave me a cigarette. I smoked a pack that day. Didn't get sick. I wish I had gotten sick. And it took me 6 years to get rid of them. That's in Vietnam, and anywhere in the war zone, cigarettes, there's no taxes on that kind of stuff. When you buy alcohol or cigarettes here, it's taxed heavily. It's 10 cents a pack over there. With a ration card, you could buy a case of beer or a fifth of any kind of the best whiskey or vodka or whatever you want to drink. It was always the same price, $3. It was never more. And that's pretty conducive to over drinking then, especially you're away from home. A lot of people are afraid. Partying is one of the things you do. That's the same way. Maybe not. I had as many friends die from drug overdoses, sadly enough, as I did from getting killed in action. And a couple of them at the very end of their tour, partying to go home, and died in a stinky little hotel in Udon, Thailand, on R&R.
So I know that now in the military, a lot of people abuse sleep aids like Ambien. What was the most popular drug to abuse?
In Vietnam?
Yeah.
Heroin, morphine, and pot. I don't think people considered pot a big deal at all, although it was profoundly powerful compared to most of the pot you would get back in the United States. A lot of it was laced with heroin. But the opium, heroin, morphine was just so readily available. Those are the ones that everybody was killed on. It was very, very prevalent and extremely, extremely easy to get. It was hard to not get sucked into that. And, that stuff scared me. So fortunately, I never got involved with that. Although I drank way too much.
Yeah. All right. Well, I want to come back to like combat and while you're at war. Can you describe like any like interaction with the local Vietnamese people there? If you had any, like, was it frustrating at times because of the language barrier?
Where we flew, I didn't. I was inland. When I go in for different reasons, but we didn't ever interact with the locals there because they were all. I was in North Vietnam, and I'm pretty sure their reaction to me would have been not good. They were trying to kill me. Yeah, no. So I didn't have a chance in South Vietnam though. It was interesting. The people were very nice, and at the time they were very appreciative that we were there. They knew that had we left, they would be overrun, which is exactly what happened when we did leave. So they were pretty nice. I'll tell you an interesting story about the locals down there. The South Vietnamese regular there, they had a small air force. It was all American stuff that our cast-offs. We'd give them our planes and helicopters and stuff. I remember the first time I went to Saigon. I landed at the big air base in Saigon, and I came out off of a plane and looked over at one of the big Chinook, a big H-42 helicopter. I thought, how the heck did they paint that? It looked like a quilt. And I walked up to it, and I realized that most of the aircraft was patched bullet holes with Pabst Blue Ribbon beer cans. They'd tin snip them down, pound them straight, take a rivet gun, and that's how they do all the bullet holes. This wouldn't probably be something. I mean, they just didn't waste anything. And at that same time, I was walking across the airstrip, and here's a whole bunch of their South Vietnamese regulars, like boot camp, their boot camp, and they're wearing the same clothes I wore in boot camp. Only they're much smaller people, and